What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 59 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Monday, March 10th, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malum. Before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the NBA as the New York Knicks are in action tonight. A 10:30 start out on the West Coast. And the Knicks take on the Sacramento Kings, and they come into this one as 2.5-point favorites, total sitting at 219.5. And the Knicks are coming off of some big-time losses, 3 in a row. They have lost for just the second time this season. They lose to Golden State on Tuesday, Los Angeles, the Lakers on Thursday, and then the back-to-back against the Clippers on Friday. They lose that one 105-95. And the story of this stretch so far in this 3-game road trip has been, or this 3-game losing streak has been the loss of Jalen Brunson, the star guard for the Knicks, and an all-star player and one of the best in the NBA. And when you lose a guy like that and such an impactful player for this Knicks team so far this season, there's really not too much hope in a lot of these games. You still say for the Knicks that there are some games, maybe against lesser opponents, Sacramento and Portland being the next two, that, yeah, the Knicks should grab wins there. However, they still are without Jalen Brunson for a couple of weeks, and that's a massive loss right now, heading down this stretch where, I mean, you're still in a comfortable spot if you're the Knicks, 40-23. You're still in third place in the Eastern Conference, but you're just trying to rack up wins and keep it consistent and keep things going. I mean, they were on a roll for a little bit, and yes, a couple losses here, a couple losses there. When you have Cleveland and Boston and those losses, those are really defeating ones. And then you go on this stretch of 3 in a row where you lose to Golden State and the 2 LA teams. It's not the greatest feeling, of course, but obviously, I mean, expectations are a little bit lower when you're without one of your star players, or you're without maybe Cat one night here or there, or you're without Jalen Brunson for a couple of weeks. I mean, they have to figure things out, though, and I think the Knicks will be able to do that. They go to Sacramento tonight and Portland on Wednesday, 2 games that they should grab wins. They still have players, Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges. You're finally expecting him to really step up here, and especially with the loss of Brunson for that little bit of time. This is the time where Mikal Bridges should be dropping 25, maybe 30 a game. I mean, that's just what you're expecting from Mikal Bridges. That's why you brought him in. That's why all those draft picks were sent across town to Brooklyn for Mikal Bridges, and he needs to really step up here in these next couple of games. It hasn't done so far in the first couple of games without Brunson. Obviously, just one game really without Brunson, as he went out of the Laker game pretty late in that one. And then I mean, in that game alone against the Clippers, Karl-Anthony Towns was the leading scorer, but he only shot 8 of 21 in that game, had 3 threes in the end. Josh Hart had 20 rebounds in that game, and Bridges did enough there. He had a solid game, 8 of 12, and had 22 points in that one. But yeah, when you take it to the next level and getting some more scoring from a guy like Bridges, like I said, I mean, I'm expecting almost 30 a game for Mikal Bridges. I know 22 is solid enough and that kind of thing, but when you're without a guy like Jalen Brunson, and Mikal Bridges is one of the guys that has the ball in his hands the most, that's when you're expecting him to really step up. OG Anunoby had a bad night against the Clippers, 4 of 15 he only shot, and Miles McBride comes into the game and as a starter instead of coming off the bench, and he only shot 2 of 13, 2 of 9 from 3-point range. So, I mean, he's got to figure things out. But like I said, it comes down to Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns right now for the New York Knicks. They go to Sacramento, and they need a win big time to really get out of this slump, get out of this losing streak, and really start to move towards the playoffs, and obviously hoping when Jalen Brunson gets back that they're fully ready to go, and down the stretch of the end of this season that they'll be ready for the postseason. So that should be interesting. Tune in tonight, 10:30 start, a late one on the West Coast as the Knicks take on the Sacramento Kings at 10:30. Let's shift things to baseball and some very stressful days out of the Bronx for Yankee fans, and really the worst fears coming in Gerrit Cole has been recommended for Tommy John surgery per MLB insider Jim Bowden. And this one, obviously, still waiting a second opinion for Gerrit Cole, but what a massive, massive blow this would be for the New York Yankees. And obviously, Cole, their ace, they still bring in guys like Max Fried, and they still have Luis Heel as well as Clark Schmidt. But those two guys, Heel and Schmidt, are also dealing with injuries of their own. And really, this is the worst case scenario for a Yankee team that really focused in on run prevention this offseason. They had a lot of focus on defense as well as their pitching, their starting pitching, to be specific there. When you look at Gerrit Cole being out, though, I mean, that changes a lot. When you have the duo that you were hoping for in Fried and Cole, you really said, all right, well, I mean, you're getting a lot of wins there, really solid pitching. And yes, the Yankees have some other options that they could go to, but those other options, Heel, Schmidt, still dealing with injuries. Like I said, this is a massive, massive deal for the New York Yankees, and they need to figure out something quickly, whether it's bringing in some more insurance in the starting pitching category, and obviously a lot of pitchers still available, starters, not really great ones, but ones that can do the job and fill that role and fill that void a little bit. Obviously, you're not going to get an ace on the market right now. All of those guys are gone, and nobody that could really pick up what Gerrit Cole does. And each and every year for the Yankees, this is really the focus, the health of the pitching. And this one is a real heartbreaker if it is confirmed. Obviously, still waiting, like I said, for a second opinion, but they are not optimistic for this one. Really pessimistic in the end about this situation, especially GM Brian Cashman. And he's talked about that in the last couple of days. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, this is a massive blow for the New York Yankees if it is confirmed. We still have not gotten confirmation just yet, but has been recommended for Tommy John surgery. Gerrit Cole has. And this would be a big, big blow to the Yankees' title hopes in 2025. And maybe they're already set on the next couple of years, 2026 and beyond. So we'll see what happens. But Gerrit Cole probably not going to be available for the New York Yankees in 2025. So a massive blow to the New York Yankees in the end. Let's move things to the other side of New York and down in Queens. They also got some bad news as their catcher, Francisco Alvarez of the New York Mets, has a broken hamate bone, and he's out 6 to 8 weeks, a fractured bone in his finger. And that's something that they really need to look at now, is he has to undergo surgery, and he's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. It's assumed, and obviously that's a big blow to the New York Mets and a guy who just cannot stay healthy. I mean, he's dealt with injuries year after year, and finally you're expecting maybe a really solid year in the end, and a guy who's got a lot of power to him. A very down year last year based on expectations in terms of that power, and then you're expecting a real jump here at the bottom of the lineup for the New York Mets. He's only 23 years old, but if he continues to deal with these injuries, I mean, you're just losing out hope on a guy like Francisco Alvarez. So that's a big blow to the New York Mets. They still have a guy, Luis Torrens, who can step in and in terms of the defense and be a very strong catcher for them. However, in the lineup, you're kind of missing a little bit at the bottom of the lineup. You don't want to make it a top-heavy lineup if you are the New York Mets, because then you really get yourself into a bit of trouble. Obviously, the guys at the top of the lineup and the star power that they have there at 1, 2, and 3, whether it's in that order, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, you also got Vientos in that area, wherever he is in that lineup. I mean, you got guys at the bottom of the lineup that you're not expecting too much from, but now you're really hoping that they step up and get some great production. Guys like Jesse Winker, you got Starling Marte down there. I mean, Tyrone Taylor, Jose Siri, whoever's playing center field. That's really the question mark right now. And can they get that production from the bottom of the lineup without a guy like Francisco Alvarez. But he's not out for the season. He's still only out for 6 to 8 weeks, but it is a little bit. And that's a big time injury for the New York Mets. And I think a hurtful one to the bottom of their lineup. So we'll see what happens, but they have to bounce back after that. And it's going to be all the pressure on Luis Torrens as the catcher of the New York Mets. So let's move things finally to college basketball and a college basketball update. I know there's NFL free agency, and obviously there's some noise coming out of there, but nothing really that we didn't know already just yet in the NFL. Let's move things to college basketball, though, where there's been so much in the last couple of days, and obviously a big-time upset we have to start off with number 7 Alabama finishing off the regular season strong down in Auburn, and a rivalry matchup that Alabama wins at the buzzer in overtime with their star man Mark Sears getting the game winner on a floater in the middle of the paint, and a game that Mark Sears probably wanted to forget the first 40 minutes or so of, as he only had 7 points. He only shot 3 of 9 on the day, 1 of 4 from three-point range, still had 7 assists, so got involved definitely as a passer, but 9 points, that's it, and it didn't matter. That's all he needed as Bama upsets Auburn in the regular season finale. Big time win for Bama, and something that I really think keeps them in line or close enough to a 1 seed. Whether that happens or not, probably it's going to not happen, I would say, unless they really, I think, in the end, win the SEC tournament. I think that's probably their only hope there, as you got teams like Florida as well as Tennessee that are really fighting near the top, along with Duke and Auburn as the top 4 teams in the country. Probably don't have enough hope for Alabama to get that 1 line unless they win the SEC tournament. But it gives them hope. They would have been dropped to 13 and they would have been 12 and 6 in conference, and they would have been 23 and 8 on the year. That's a 2, maybe even a 3 line for Alabama. So it would have been a disappointing end of the year, but they get a massive, massive win on the road, taking on Auburn, and a big time upset. And I think that really keeps out the hope that in the end, I think Bama's probably a 2 seed, but just a massive win overall in terms of seeding, and especially in the SEC tournament as well. So interesting stuff, and they really get a massive win there. Alabama does, and they upset Auburn on the road, their rival in a rivalry game, and obviously what a impactful game that could be later on in this season for Alabama. Let's move to some other games, and St. John's continues to roll at the buzzer as well. Zuby Ejiofor from close range, and St. John's wins this one 86-84 on the road. RJ Lewis had 28 points to match Cam Jones on the other side with 32. What a game it was, and this one finished in overtime as well. I think in the end, what you got to say is St. John's continues to roll. They are clearly the top team in the Big East. This is no fluke. They have won every possible test that they've been handed so far this year, especially in conference. And yes, there's been a couple out of conference that they maybe want back, but I mean, they've handled so many tough games this year. And obviously Rick Pitino heading into the month of March, it's really looking bright for the St. John's Red Storm, especially heading now into the Big East tournament later this week. So we'll see what happens with St. John's, but a massive win, and credit to Kadari Richmond, a triple-double in this one. And obviously a long time coming that he would get a triple-double. I mean, he just continues to put up numbers for St. John's each and every game, but he gets the first St. John's triple-double this century. And obviously what an achievement that is on the road at Marquette. Tough game, and a big-time win for the 6th-ranked Johnnies on the road. So when you look at the other games as well, Houston gets a big-time win at Baylor. Tough road game, and they still figure it out 65-61 now heading into the Big 12 tournament. Tennessee handles things at home against South Carolina. Same with Florida at home against Ole Miss. But the last couple of games, you look at Duke really handling North Carolina in the end, in a game that got a little close at halftime, 43-42. Duke led it and then they just pulled away in the second half as Carolina did take the lead in the second half, just did not have enough gas to keep up with this Blue Devils team. And I think when you look at Duke, they are clearly the favorites out of the ACC and clearly on the one line, 100% confirmed now in my mind after they beat really all those teams in the ACC, and they're 19-1 in ACC play. Even with an upset in the ACC tournament, they still are a 1 seed, and they'll probably be the 1 seed in the East region heading into March Madness. So we'll see what happens with Duke, and then let's finish things off with Sunday, where Michigan is knocked off by number 8 Michigan State, 79-62. Comfortable win in the end for the Spartans. And Vlad Golden on one side for Michigan had a great game in this one, 29 points. But Michigan State just has so many guys that they can go to, and they put up 79 points with their leading scorer being Jace Richardson with 18. They had Trey Holloman with 20 off the bench. Just overall, what a fantastic team Tom Izzo has. A lot of scorers, a lot of rebounders, guard play. He's got bigs, anything you need in March. Tom Izzo has it with this Michigan State squad this year, and obviously they continue to roll right now. But let's quickly, just looking at conference tourneys, going to talk a lot about it on Wednesday. But as for tonight, St. Mary's in action against Pepperdine. You got Gonzaga in action against San Francisco. Those two teams, St. Mary's and Gonzaga, you're hoping to see them meet in the championship. St. Mary's has the edge this season so far. They are the 1 seed, and they have defeated Gonzaga, twice this season, home and on the road. So we'll see what happens. But those two teams both in action tonight in their semifinal matchups in the WCC. So we'll see what happens, but tune in as March is here and we just continue to roll. The madness is finally upon us, and obviously Selection Sunday 6 days away. But I mean, conference tourney week is one of the best ever and the best each and every year. And when you look at it, there are some phenomenal matchups that we could see later this week in all of those big conference tournaments, SEC, Big 12, Big East, ACC, whatever it is. We definitely got you covered here, and make sure you tune into Wednesday's episode as well as Friday's episode for all the latest in college basketball. But that'll do it for episode 58 or 59, of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malamuth. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Wednesday.